So we're going to start our evening. I'll introduce the concept of the story and the value of the story and why it's so important that everybody record their own little memory. And I'm going to link it all in together about the written word and the spoken word and invite the audience to please go and read your stories, which are pasted at the back of the boxes. And then I'm going to say, for those of you who are not at all sure that you really want to take the trouble to read, we're going to tell a few stories. And of course, these are stories based on the holidays. Candy, would you like to do our first story?
Well, when I was a young girl growing up in a small town in Ohio, annually the extended Porter family would take a trek out through the woods, out through the cornfields, to a pre-holiday Christmas gathering. And by extended family, I mean there were probably 12 plus families, some with 4 generations. What I really remember is driving in, wait for it, our mint green Packard. Does anybody remember those? Mm-hmm. Yes, of course you do. Anyway, so we would get through the cornfields, we would park our car, we would trundle through the gravel driveway to this marvelous old hunting lodge that sat on a ledge overlooking Beaver Creek. But back then, we called it Beaver Creek. We were all dressed in our holiday finest. And unfortunately, what that meant was that we were not allowed to go outside to play. So what I do remember is just a gaggle of giggling girls and bundles of boisterous boys, and we were all cousins of some sort or other. And honestly, it was just mass indoor cacophonous chaos. Oh, but boy, was it fun. It was fun. But, you know, mostly I remember Hoadley. Hoadley was this very small but very spry British caretaker of the lodge. And it was his domain. And it was his kitchen that was responsible for preparing this wonderful feast for the ages for all of the extended Porter clan. I don't know how he did it, to be honest. But what I do remember is just miles and miles and piles of food. Oh, it was wonderful. All 45 of us hungrily sitting there waiting to delve in. But then there was Uncle Ben, who had to say grace. Dear Father, we are gathered together. Interminable. It was interminable. But he finally got done, and we would dig into the food. There was a huge trestle table. That was the centerpiece of the entire lodge. It wasn't the river rock hearth, although that was lovely with its crackling fire. It was actually this huge trestle table at which we all sat. And what I remember, the gales of laughter that just truly soared up through this 3-story ceiling. And as we were done, our weary parents would gather up their even more weary children and bundle us up for time to go home. And we would all line up, and there would be Hoadley, proudly presenting each one of us youngsters with his gift, his personal gift for us for Christmas time. And it was a beautifully polished, plump, juicy orange. Well, to this day, honestly, whenever I look at an orange, my mind can just go zooming back to those wonderful memories. And for this, I thank Hoadley. I thank you, Hoadley, wherever you are.
You're at a train station. It has been painted orange. The name of the station is Hoadley Station. You are a policewoman, and you are a passenger, and you're going to be the station master calling out the arrival of the trains. Please go. Go for it, station master. Call out. Call out, Larry. Call out.
Oh, the birds.
Excuse me, miss, do you have a ticket to go on this train?
I do.
Could I see that ticket, please? Right now.
Here.
No. This is from the movies.
I don't have it.
Well, then you're not getting on that train.
I gotta get on that train. I'm meeting my husband-to-be.
Well, I don't know what to do. I'm an officer of the law, and it's my job to make certain that you are in compliance.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
Nice.
Anna Maria Alberghetti.
And your address?
1056. Somewhere. Avenue.
Okay, and your phone number?
Poke your eyes out and let me on the bus.
Take your ticket.
Okay. Thanks.
Julie, will you do your story for us, please?
Good evening. My story is about a Christmas a long time ago when I had young children. And Christmas is coming, and Aunt Ruth is coming. She's the woman I stayed with when I was growing up. But my favorite cousin, Win, is coming too. And I'm delighted that Win is coming, and I'm a little nervous about Aunt Ruth coming because when I grew up, she had maids and cooks and governesses, and everything was done properly. And Win and I, as children, made sure that we never did anything properly. Like we would go out and dig in the dirt and bring the dirt into the house. Well, as adults, he is my very close friend. And I am delighted that he's coming, but I'm a little nervous about Aunt Ruth coming. However, my children are really excited about Win coming, and they decide they're going to play a trick on him. And what they're going to do, they got a stocking, and they got sticks and stones and coal. Hard to find the coal. And they stuffed the stocking, each coal and stone, with the sticks coming out the top, really artistically. So, Christmas morning, we come down, we open the door, and there is Win's stocking. He plays along with it. He opens each stick and exclaims about each piece of coal and each stone. The children are laughing their heads off, and I am just delighted. But I look over and I look at Aunt Ruth, and she is horrified that we would do such a thing to her precious and only son. Anyway, we give him his real stocking, and he opens it and he likes it. But I know he liked the first stocking better. So, as a child, Christmas at Aunt Ruth's house was always a disappointment because I was never treated like part of the family. So I was thrilled that I could give Aunt Ruth Christmas in my house with my family, my way, with joy and fun and love. And actually I sent this story to all my children, and they remember it, and they laughed, and they were so glad that I remembered this wonderful story.
You're in a store. Here's a Christmas stocking, and I want you to remove items out of the Christmas stocking that's in the store. And I'm going to ask Audrey, and I'm going to ask Helen, Audrey and Helen, to be in the Christmas store coming to get things out of the stocking.
Leave your paper here.
Look what Sandy's left us.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Oh, what's in there?
It's got
What do you got? What do you got?
papers and old newspapers and some string.
Oh, look!
And
It says,
and
look, does this look like a spider?
well, I've got some good glue here. Maybe you can just drop it on him.
I'm going to drop him right there. Yuck! What are you going to get?
That's good. I'm going to put my hand in there and just close my eyes.
Okay.
Okay.
See,
close
what do
your
you
eyes.
get? What
Close
is
your
it?
eyes.
A snake! A snake! A snake! A snake!
Fulfillment of Christmas wishes. That's you. You're up, Clarice. You're next. Yes, sweetie. Please tell us your story.
Greetings, everyone. My story is about a Christmas wish. Growing up as a child, I always loved the season of Christmas. During this season, my desire was to see chestnuts roasting on an open fire. But living in Florida, the land of sunshine, this was not possible. So when I became grown and I married a man who was from New Jersey, he had seen chestnuts roasting on an open fire many times. And he wanted me to have that experience. So we drove to New Jersey to spend Christmas with his mother. On Christmas Eve, we hopped in the car and drove to New York City. It was so picturesque. Oh, the snow was dazzling down. And the people were dressed up like Eskimos. I tell you, the young and the old were skating at Rockefeller Center. It was a sight to behold. So we got out, we parked the car and got out, and we walked around. Snow surrounded us. I reached down, this is not staying up here, so I don't know. I reached down and grabbed a handful of snow, and I made a snowball. And I hurled it at my husband, and it hit him right in the chest. But I looked around and I said, from my heart to your heart, I love you. Then, all of a sudden, I looked around. I ran across the street. Oh me, oh my. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was real. It was really real. I saw chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Fireplaces, Christmas trees. I have many stories that relate to Christmas trees. Jane, would you like to tell us your story about Christmas trees?
Well, first I wonder if you all would like to know how this happened. Apparently there was an assignment for our acting group, and I didn't get it. So I came that day and they said, well, you have to have 3 sentences that tells a whole story about a holiday experience. Well, you know, I scribbled it down, and had I known we were going to do this, I probably would have written another one. But anyway, it goes back to 1975, and on Christmas Eve, we sat at the table and we had all our family and friends from the neighborhood for dinner. The whole place was decorated for Christmas, inside and outside, including a live tree. At the same time, every time we got Christmas decorations out, my husband had a terrible cold. And this year, in addition to some symptoms, he had asthma. So we were about finished dinner, and the phone rang, and it was Mom. My mother called to say that my father had passed away that afternoon. Well, she said, it was his Christmas gift, you know. The reason she said that was he had had Alzheimer's for several years and hadn't been very well recently. So it was indeed a Christmas gift. Well, the next scene is our house was very busy the next morning, and we had a good time opening our gifts, but then we had to hurry and pack up and get to my mother's. We are in the Hudson Valley going to Philadelphia, and it takes a few hours. Had a good trip and got there. There was a wreath on the door, but no decorations. And all of a sudden, my husband lost his cold. No cold there. Anyway, we stayed for a while, and then my husband and oldest son went back to work at the store. He gets home, and the cold returns. Full-blown asthma again. Okay, so the next week we get home after Christmas vacation, and I call the allergist to make an appointment for George. What he said was, it wasn't the Christmas tree. We thought it was the tree. It was the molds that had come onto the tree outdoors. So we had the answer, but we also had to have an artificial tree from then on. Now, we're thinking back now about the lovely little tiny, beautiful Christmas trees that the Boy Scouts had a project and planted on the farm. We would go once in December on a weekend to see George's parents, take the tractor out. He would load the 3 kids that were big and take them up the hill past our old house onto this acreage, cut down a beautiful tree, and come back and load it into the car to take home. They loved to ride on the tractor. It was a thrilling thing for the kids. So, but after 60 years now, I'm thinking this must be a beautiful green fir forest. A happy memory. Thank you.
Phil, would you like to read your story?
Good evening. Good evening. I used to have very different Christmases than I have now, where Christmas is a very quiet time. But years ago, we would get the family together, and a few days before Christmas, I would get as many as I could to go out to the tree farm to pick a Christmas tree. It was a beautiful day, brisk air, birds singing, the children playing tag along the trees, and those of us who were more mature having debates about which was the best tree. Finally, we would pick one, cut it down, and take it home and put it up in the living room. Now, my wife always wanted a small tree, but we had a 17-foot ceiling, so we could have a big tree. And when you're out there in the tree farm, everything looks smaller than it is when you get it in a house. So we would bring in an 11-foot tree and get a ladder to decorate the top of it and have a great time through the rest of the week. And gradually and then suddenly there would be presents under the tree, and Christmas morning we would open them all and create a massive pile of waste paper. Then finally, days after that, we were through with our family celebration. All the family went home, and I had the job of taking down the Christmas tree.
Curtis, and who hasn't had a chance? Helen, you are decorating a Christmas tree. Make this microphone stand the imaginary Christmas tree. please don't be yourselves. Be some other character with an emotion.
Oh, you brought your own sled to decorate the tree. Oh, how nice.
You won't find this to be a sled, but when you want to carry things, you're going to find me handy.
Does it go on runners too?
No.
No runners?
No runners unless you go downhill.
What's the point? Oh, I don't have a hill. Do you have a hill?
No, I am simply saying that if you want to go downhill,
I don't want to go
run.
down hills. No, I was just talking about hills, that's all. What?
You're just talking.
Are you going to help decorate?
You're just talking, that's all. Now,
Are you going to help decorate or are you
that's
just going to
right.
stand
That's
there?
why I brought this.
What did you got in there?
Well, here's a snowman.
Oh, boy, he's wonderful.
Well, he's awfully large, too. I think that's larger than he really is.
We had deep snow that year. Yeah.
Perhaps you've got a lot of space between your needles, too.
I didn't bring any needles. Are you into...
have needles. Hey, just hang the snowman.
Are you into snow...
The rocking horse is behind, waiting for the snowman to get home.
Oh, okay.
Just a minute. Before you threw the snowman.
You damn right.
What are you going to do with the rocking horse?
Oh, just wait and see.
Okay.
Okay, what? I'm rocking.
Yeah.
Yeah? What are you doing?
I came to decorate a tree.
What do you got on your head?
These are two Santas looking at you.
Do you ever put on those?
You have no idea the cameras that are on.
Do you ever put them on instead of your glasses?
No, I'm decorating the tree.
What else you got?
Pardon me. For me, I have a snowflake.
Ding. Oh, it made a sound. I heard it. What are you doing now?
Excuse me?
What are you doing now?
I'm going to hang another ornament.
Oh, you're going to hang.
Since you're throwing away the ornaments and rocking horses and so forth.
No, I didn't know. I rode the rocking horse. I didn't throw it away.
This is a funny gremlin. He looks a little like you.
Thank you.
Ellen, would you like to do your Thanksgiving story?
I was 10 years old, and it was Thanksgiving. And I've been working up to this for days. My mother had been working in the kitchen, and she'd been cleaning the house. And finally, my relatives arrived, my aunt, uncle, and cousins. And Thanksgiving began the way it always did, with a ping pong game to the death between my father and his brother, my uncle. So we all went to the basement, they played ping pong, and then we could come up to eat. And as a child, I just remember certain things about what my mother would prepare in the kitchen. First, she had these bowls that nested in each other, and they were different colors. I still have the yellow one. And she always started with the yellow one, and she would put cut-right waxed paper covering our Formica table. I think those were, by law, your kitchen table had to be Formica in the 50s. I'm not sure. But she'd cover the table, and she would cube bread, no Pepperidge Farm, everything from scratch. Meanwhile, there'd be giblets boiling on the stove to make giblet stuffing. And then she'd make coleslaw, so off came the cut-right, and on went some more cut-right wax paper for the coleslaw. And no Cuisinart, just chopping and slicing by hand and a lot of Miracle Whip. That's all I remember about that. Then she'd do the sweet potatoes. Dole's crushed pineapple, a layer of sweet potatoes that she had cooked and peeled, now sliced, and a layer of those, and then more Dole's and more sweet potatoes, and topped with marshmallows. Real marshmallows, not those little dots that they give you to stick in cocoa. The real marshmallows like you can put on the fire and they flame up. And when it was baked, the marshmallows all had brown, crispy around it and mushy in the middle. It was wonderful. But the best part was the chicken livers. Now, I doubt any of you had chicken livers, chopped chicken liver, but we did. And she'd saute the livers and the onions in schmaltz. Schmaltz is chicken fat. Any Jewish home, that's what you used. You might have used butter, we used schmaltz until we learned about olive oil. So the livers and onions would be cooked, the hard-boiled eggs would be done, and they had to go through what was called a Foley mill. Does anyone remember what a Foley mill is? They used it to make baby food. Gerber wasn't around then. So they'd take food, vegetables, put them in the mill, and you'd grind it, and it would come out as almost a paste. Well, you know the texture of baby food. So the livers and the onions would have to go through, and they'd get stuck, and you'd have to go backwards, and then you'd have to take off the thing on the bottom and put it back. And it was a whole process, but it was the best chicken liver. Then we could sit down and have dinner. And the tablecloth was white Irish linen that was my grandmother's. We had all her sterling silver and cut glass that we only used on holidays. Don't touch it in the in-between. And it was the most pleasant, happiest Thanksgiving we ever had. There were no fights. My father didn't my aunt, and he didn't cause me to go screaming from the room crying. Nothing like that. We had the most pleasant dinner. And then we trooped off to the living room. Everyone's fallen into a chair or a couch except my father, who was the centerpiece on the oriental rug in the middle of the room, lit by the fire from the fireplace and the football game on the television. And his head was nestled in my Aunt Alice's brand new mink coat. As I realized this, Aunt Alice walked in. And so ended the best and the last Thanksgiving that we had with those relatives.
Our next story is about relatives, but grandparents. Larry?
My grandfather, Billy Miller by name, was a dirty, sweaty fixer, you might say. He was a blacksmith. He was tough on the outside, but a soft guy on the inside. Papa, as I called him, was always willing to help people, whether you were a relative or not. So during his youth, times were hard because of the way the government was running things at the turn of the century. But that didn't stop my papa. For the Christmas of 1910, he fired up his anvil and hammer and earned enough extra money to surprise his two sons with a stately, muscular 2-year-old horse, mostly black, with a small white diamond on his beautiful forehead. The two brothers were overwhelmed by this generous gift of their father to them, and they used the church, or the horse, for many years, and just brought a certain kind of happiness to the whole family that I've never forgotten. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Are you ready to tell your story, please, dear?
A bit of holiday color. Dazzling lights of red, blue, and green twinkled on a 4-foot tree that I had found for my friend who was facing a blue Christmas. She struggled to feel the joy and meaning of the holiday. All around her were carols and memories of time shared before the death of her husband. For a short time, 4 foot of color and light burned through her darkness. I wanted her to know the ongoing peace of Christ that I knew and that I loved her every day. Thank you.
And And staying on the theme of love, Audrey, would you like to share your memory with us, please?
At Christmas season, when I was growing up, we had a playroom in our basement, and it had a ping pong table in it, and that gave my mother and me lots of room to spread out our supplies for the Christmas gifts that we were going to wrap up. And we did that in a special way, not just with, ribbon and paper. We got creative so that when we made the packages, it would fit the personality or the special interest of the person that was going to receive the gift. Women would get packages that would look like bunches of flowers like you saw out on our lobby table, or they would have cupcakes on it, cookies, or just, the things that they like to do, like needle and thread and scissors. And even one of them we made with a little purse and high heels, because this lady really liked to dress up. Well, the men would get boxes that would look like a shirt with buttons, or that would be one with a vest and a tie. Or another one had a camera. And one of them that was fun to make was a fish on a rod. And one of the other ones I think I remember, it had a saw and a hammer and nails. Mother and I had lots of fun together getting special things for people, and they were very appreciative, which was nice. What a great moment and memory I have of those times, of this day, and to this very day, I miss being able to do things like this with my mother. But it was such fun. That's the season.
Curtis?
We've had most stories about the Christmas season, but I, as one other, chose another holiday to recognize. We had wonderful celebrations on the 4th of July each year at my grandparents' home up on their farm north of New Haven, Connecticut. I remember one year, I was probably about 10 also, and we were invited for the celebration. My parents, my brother, along with family members and friends and all kinds of people from all over, including neighbors. When we arrived, many people were already there, standing in line to recognize the newcomers. There were my uncles and my aunts and my cousins and neighbors, and I was introduced to all of them and shaking hands as I was taught to do. Suddenly, there was a stir near one of the doors, and people started moving in that direction. The news that got them all going, it was about Bessie, the cow who had gotten out of the gate. And we all had to go out and catch her and get her back in. Someone had left the gate open. So we got back to the house, and of course, Grandmother had fixed a wonderful, wonderful dinner, as she usually had. And we had, I can't remember what we had. But anyway, it was very good. And after dinner, we kids were told to get ready and get our equipment all together, because there was going to be the usual challenge at 4th of July's time. And it was going to be a challenge with prizes. So we all gathered out in the field behind the barn, where we had been told to stand, and some grown-up, I can't remember who, had told us to divide up into two groups, and one group was to stand over there, and the other group was to stand over there. And so we did, and we had all our equipment. And the excitement was palpable, because we had not only the smell of the ammunition, but also the smell of excitement. And we were told to load up and get ready. And then we almost forgot something because I'd brought some ammunition, but it wasn't the right kind. But anyway, we were told, ready, fire! And the smell, the smell of all those caps and the smoke was very hard for us to see. And what a noise and what a smell it all was. And, well, wouldn't you know, the only no, it's not a tragedy, but the only problem was that my brother, he was 2 years older than I, was supposed to have held the cap pistol that way. And instead, he held it too close to his shirt, and he burned a hole right in the front of that shirt. Well, the grown-ups decided at that point they would not have another holiday of July 4th to be celebrated that way. I wonder whatever happened to my cap pistol. Oh, well.
Thank you. Helen, would you like to read your story, dear?
Well, this is called For the Kid Who Had Everything or Nothing. Some kids don't succumb to enticements to corporate America, and they like the blessings and the burdens of those people who care for them, especially around Christmas time. One of the students of my class really had a passion for animals and gophers and all those things that walk in the woods and find the highways. And I said, well, we'll find something. So my kids were pretty easy, but I called a pet store hoping that the answer would be negative, maybe illegal or require special things or all that. But what the man said, how many feet do you want? There's $5 a foot for our wonderful snakes. Boys absolutely adore snakes, Requires their special permits. But the man said, well, how many feet you want on yours? And I said, they're $5 a foot. Recommend at least the permits, But the man said, well, how many feet again? They're $5 a foot. That's pretty easy. Oh, the smallest one, I pleaded, please. It came in 4 days, and the pet store man was thrilled. They sent you 4.5 feet, but only charged you for 3. Oh, lucky you, Christmas time. And he gave me instructions on how to care for snakes. Well, one line more, even charged you for $3 for 3 of them instead of 4. Oh, lucky you. Oh, and then he gave me instructions. Well, give a live mouse every week or 2. Don't give them excessive handling because scales are delicate and their common cold gives viruses to snakes too. So you have to be very careful. Keep the temperature even, 75 degrees, Close that cage. Oh, well, I had 7 children at home. And those days, it was just given time, just a little bit, and there would be sneezing and coughing. He told me that would really kill a snake if I didn't be very careful. The smallest little one of the snakes was 3 feet, and the snake fascinated them. My little boys just absolutely loved snakes, and they wanted to watch it eat. And in a week or so, we put a mouse in the cage, and the boa constrictor ignored it, and then the mouse began to eat the boa. Oh,
Get it out of this. Oh, get it out of this, said the man, shouting over the telephone. Oh, that snake will get infected. Don't worry. It will eat when it's ready to. Don't worry. Another week, a day went by, another one and another one, and pretty soon the snake couldn't eat. Well, you know, you're going to have to force feed him, said the serpent's guide. He told me how to mix things and hold things direct, and force the jaws of the snake open, and insert the syringe with the stuff far down into the throat of the snake. And this was my Christmas, you know. This was mine. So I squirted it into the snake. You have to get it down enough so he can't spit it out. Well, I just did it. Christmas is Christmas, and what can I do? The Christmas miracle of the story. I just actually stood my ground and forced the boa constrictor in the kitchen. And he did eat it, and he stayed healthy, and all the dreams of Christmas in our house was fine. One day in school, when we went back to school, everybody came into my room there because they had to see the snoot, that wonderful, wonderful snake that did make it through Christmas.
Helen, it's time for you, my love.
Christmas Day was tomorrow. I was 8 years old and sick in bed. It had been a cold winter, and I so wanted a swing set. But I doubted that Santa was going to be able to deliver it. After all, he probably couldn't get it on his sleigh, and the ground was frozen. But after a supper of soup and some awful tasting medicine, I looked out the window one last time at the very exact spot that swing set would just go, if only. I spent a little time thinking about it, but when you're 8 years old, you fall asleep, knowing that Santa was going to bring you something, even if it wasn't a swing set. Christmas morning came, and I woke, had some more medicine, and in our home, breakfast was served before you went to the Christmas tree to open presents. So I dutifully ate it, and I was getting ready to be bundled up and carried into the living room where the tree was, and my mother opened the window shade. I looked out to see if it had snowed during the night, because I knew that spot for the swing set would be empty. But what did I see but a red swing set with 2 swings and a ladder and a trapeze bar? Santa had delivered it. It was a miracle. Later that day, we, of course, had our usual dinner, Christmas dinner, and then my mother made up the sofa for my dad, whose back was hurting. For days, he laid on that sofa on his heating pad, and years later, I found out that it was a really special Santa who delivered that swing set to me on that frozen ground and that winter night. Thanks, Daddy.
Oh, that's